The ability to do what we want is license. The ability to do what we ought is freedom. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Benedictine Spirituality 101. My name is Brother Francisco, and this is All Good in the Brotherhood. For this week's episode, we will be talking about the second of the three Benedictine vows. Last week we talked about stability. Today we're going to be talking about obedience. Now, obedience is not a particularly popular word. We talked about this a little bit in an episode a while ago when we talked about the kind of man the abbot should be, and in respect what kind of monk his community should be in relation to him. And when we talked about dealing with impossible tasks and that sometimes we are given things that we don't know what to do, but it is by God's design that we still have to do them. And it is in trust and obedience to the will of God that we do them regardless of what we think ourselves. So, obedience is not popular because the whole world worships this idea of utter autonomy and individualism, a relativistic approach to philosophy, culture, and just how I get to act in everyday life. That you can't tell me what to do. I get to do what I want to do. My truth is my truth. I identify whatever I want to be. Everything becomes relative, and that includes a relativistic kind of obedience. So I'll listen to the rules I like. I won't listen to the rules I don't like. So what is obedience? What is actual obedience? And how is it not a squashing of freedom? Because for me, when I first heard the word obedience in relation to vows, when I was getting ready to enter the monastery and be a monk, it didn't necessarily ring great with me, that obedience, that means I can't do anything I want ever. And I won't have any freedom. Well, in some sense, Benedict would kind of agree with that, actually, because he says that a monk doesn't even have the free disposition of his own body, which might sound radical, but we'll talk about that in a second. But what is actual obedience? Requires us to understand what is actual freedom. Pope John Paul II defines freedom as not the ability to do what we want, but the ability to do what is right. The ability to do what we want is license. The ability to do what we ought is freedom. So a license is to say it is legal, or you are allowed, you are able to do X, Y, and Z. If you have a driver's license, you are permitted to drive. Well, you have a gun carrying license. You are, by the government, allowed to carry a gun. Well, if we approach all rights or all privileges with an idea of license rather than freedom, it becomes, I just need to be told by someone else that I have the ability to do that without consequence. And that we push more and more on this idea of, I need the freedom to express myself, or I need the freedom to do whatever I want, when we really are saying, I want license from someone, but that if there's someone else who contradicts it, no one can take my license away from me. It's a very interesting kind of circular idea. So if we counter obedience with license, then obedience it looks horrifying. But license is not a Christian principle. Freedom is. As Paul says in Colossians, it is for freedom, brothers, that Christ has set us free. So what is obedience, and how does that relate to freedom? So if freedom is the ability to do what is right, obedience is the absolute perfect virtue. Because obedience is entrusting to someone else, someone who is better formed, in a closer relationship with God, is given through God's design and the work of the Holy Spirit, a special place of authority. It is giving to them the privilege and the ability to tell us what that right thing is. So obedience is to say, I have freedom, and I'm going to let someone else choose how I use that freedom because they know what is right even better than I do. So that obedience is actually the fullest expression of freedom because it is trusting that right ordered action to the guidance of the Holy Spirit through the voice of someone else. So in my case, it's the abbot. I vow obedience to my abbot, Because in the rule it says, the monk is truly believed that the abbot's orders and his words are truly the voice and words of God. So obedience to whomever it is, your boss, your parents, your grandparents, aunts, uncles, teachers, the law and authorities, leaders in the church, bishops, priests, pope, they are all given a special place of authority by God's design. So obedience to what they say, it allows us to grow in freedom. Now, that obedience is only proper if that particular person is also living a virtuous life, and if the laws or whatever they're asking us to do are in accordance with virtue. St. Thomas Aquinas will even say that you can be obedient even to a law that seems unfair if it does not cause you to sin. But if there is a law that is being promoted, that is one that promotes sinful behavior, you can speak out against it, and you cannot be made to obey it. But I'm speaking here in a context clearly of a monastery, so that I don't believe that the abbot is telling me to do anything that would be sinful. So for us then, do not fear obedience. Obedience to parents, obedience to your boss, obedience to priests and religious and bishops and the Pope, if you truly trust in God. Obedience requires, yes, a trust in the individual who is telling you to do something, but it fundamentally is a trust in providence. Trusting that God would not take advantage of my freedom by manipulating or causing me to do something that does not grow me into a better version of myself. So when I take a vow of obedience, I am taking a vow that says I want to use my freedom well, to do what is right. And sometimes I don't even always know what is right. Right? Right. And it is obedience that admits I can't know everything, so I'm going to trust that whomever the Lord has put over me, they can know. Just like, a 3-year-old doesn't know everything that is right for them. If they had their way, it would be cookies for every meal. They would stay up as late as they possibly would want, and they'd run out of the street after the ball, not looking either way. But they have to obey their parents, who know what is right, even if it doesn't make any sense to the kid. And that obedience is not a squashing of the child's freedom. No, it's saying, this isn't right. This isn't good for you. So I'm not going to give you license to do whatever you want, but I want you to live in freedom to do what is right. What is right and good is eating a balanced meal, having a good night's sleep, and being safe around traffic. Applying that to our life, we need to be accepting of those places and people that have authority over us, and being willing to be obedient and listen. Obedience is not the enemy of freedom. Obedience is the best way to express it. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Benedictine Spirituality 101. I'm Brother Francisco. This is All Good in the Brotherhood. Have a wonderful day. God bless. Adios.